a recent reads video. I'm taping it on June 9th, 2019. I taped this video 3 times yesterday in various ways and it did not turn out, so I just decided to give up, trash every bit of footage, throw it away, and start again. So good morning, here we go. Let's see. The first thing I want to talk about was what I've recently read. I was in Chicago last weekend and we went to Women and Children First bookstore, which is a very well-stocked, well-curated bookstore in Andersonville, which is a neighborhood in Chicago. And so I was able to pick up a few books. I picked up Mira Jacob, her memoir in dialogue, which is called Good Talk. And I picked up Amor, Towles, A Gentleman in Moscow, and then a graphic novel by Adrian Tomine. So I had a very good shopping trip in Chicago for books and really enjoyed that bookstore. The staff was really friendly and I just really liked how curated it was and how much literary fiction there was. And of course it's a feminist bookstore, so there were a lot of different titles in those topics. But while I was in Chicago, when we had downtime and weren't with family, I did manage to read Good Talk. The art style is the same throughout the entire book. It's like a cutout for each character, and then you get to see Mira as a girl, a teen, a young woman, and then the woman that she is now in these art styles. And the whole premise of the book is it's talking about how race and cultural expectations have affected her in various ways, and then how that in turn informs her relationship with her son. And at the beginning of the book, he's a 6-year-old who's kind of obsessed with the music and videos of Michael Jackson. And he loves the dance, he's learning how to moonwalk, and then he starts asking questions about Michael's racial identity and how he was, very black or darker skinned person when he was young, and then gradually his whole face changed and his whole demeanor changed. And that started this son asking all kinds of questions about race and how people perceive him, because he's a mixed-raced child. His mother is Indian American, and his father is white. And so it starts Mira to thinking about her entire identity and how her family in India and her family in America have been counseling her over the years that she will probably never make a good arranged marriage because her skin's too dark compared to some of the other people in the family. And these microaggressions from her family and then from the culture at large inform the way I said inform twice, but it affects the way that she relates to people, relationships with men and women, and her sexuality, and then falling in love with a white person to marry, and his family being very conservative and Trump supporters and refusing to listen to why that might not be a good idea for her own personal understanding and for her son's understanding of how he fits in the family. So that's a lot, and it covers 9/11, and I like the art style. And behind these drawings of the characters, there are photographs in the background and lots of notes, and so there's a lot to read and see. But I was able to read the whole thing while I was away for a few days, and I am so glad I bought it. Another thing I've done recently is I signed up for NetGalley, which I didn't think I would be eligible for some reason. I just thought I'd be rejected because I don't have huge followings anywhere. But the publishers have approved me for what I have requested. And so 2 books I read as my first foray into this whole new getting free books for reviews, for honest reviews. Drake Starts Over by Linda Holmes, which is a novel about a woman who is in an unhappy marriage and trying to leave, and just as she's packing up her car, she gets a phone call to find out that her husband has been killed in a car accident. So she's a widow who's living under a crushing amount of guilt because no one really knows that she was going to leave him. And she has a best friend named Andy. He's a man. They have a very platonic friendship, a very deep, affecting friendship, and he has 2 daughters he is raising because his ex-wife left them and left town, so he was left for primary child rearing, and so Evvie helps him, and she's just trying to figure out her place in life, and through a series of circumstances gets a roommate or a tenant in the apartment that's attached to her house, who is a washed up baseball player. And he is suffering his own psychological torments at the moment, and you put the two together and kind of slowly, Linda Holmes is very patient as she builds their relationship and friendship. She throws in plot complications, but it's not so much about the primary relationship as it builds, but her friendship with Andy, her relationship with her in-laws, with her dad, and the writing is great. And I really enjoyed it. The other thing I read was a short story collection called Maggie Brown and Others, stories by Peter Orner. I've never read him before, but these were really interesting stories. They're written in cycles. So the first section of the book they're all set in California in some way, and they're all kind of ephemeral, and you don't quite get into the heads. They're very short, some of them, get into the heads of the characters. But the writing will pull you in. They're very moody. And I like that section. And then there is a story cycle of a few sections that are all based around an unnamed narrator who is clearly a writer. He went to get his MFA, and he is writing each of these character profiles of people in his family and people that he's known in college and in grad school and beyond. And it all leads up to a series of stories about he and his wife. And I don't want to spoil anything, but the writing, I mean, I was riveted by this entire story cycle. The last part of the book is a novella, and it's about this narrator's uncle. And so he's not in the novella at all, but we've seen him in previous sections of the story. And he has a heart attack at the beginning of the novella, and it's what unfolds for him and his relationships with people in his family and his memories of growing up in this manufacturing town in Massachusetts. So that's what I finished. I'm currently still working on Lethal White, the fourth in the Robert Galbraith's Cormoran Strike series. It's a little slow going. It's so long. I'm only 65% in. I feel like I've been reading it forever, but I want to finish that and get done because I got approved to read the number 5 Jackson Brodie, Big Sky, by NetGalley, or by the publisher. So I want to get to that this week and see what happened to Jackson and see what's going on in his life. And I'm also currently reading Voices from Chernobyl. And it's an oral history of people who were alive and living around Chernobyl at the time of the accident in 1986. And the reason I picked it up is it's on Scribd, and I saw it after I had finished watching the HBO Chernobyl miniseries, which I highly recommend if you want to know what happened. I mean, I remember hearing about Chernobyl in 1986 when I was 20, and you know, just hearing about it on the radio, not understanding at all what the implications of it were, and never really knowing anything about it or researching it further. So this gives you such a clear understanding of how onerous and how devastating this nuclear accident was for people, and how many people were involved in the cleanup and what happened to many of them. And they also personalize it. They created a couple of composite characters who were fighting against the Russian government to get the story out. And this Voices from Chernobyl is a great companion piece to it. What's coming up for me? Possibly this week, there's our writing school here, the Lighthouse Writers Workshop, that I do some design work for, has this big LitFest every summer. They have tons of courses and all kinds of writers of note who come in to teach. And on Wednesday night, they're having a reading, including Rachel Cusk and Ross Gay and Helen Macdonald. And so I'm, seeing if my procrastinating kind of introverted self will get myself down to see that reading on Wednesday night. And if I do, then I will report back and tell you how it goes. So that's what's happening to me right now. Please let me know what you've got coming up this week, and we will talk in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.